Welcome to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. We're a community newspaper based in Midcoast, Maine, and we provide the most comprehensive, in-depth coverage available anywhere of the 18 towns, 1 plantation, and 1 gore that make up Lincoln County. I added that this week because I think we've been leaving it out, and I love Hibbert's gore. Right?
Yeah, represent.
Yes. My name's Molly, and I'm a reporter here at the Lincoln County News. I cover Waldoboro, Jefferson, Somerville, and Hibbert's Gore, and Monhegan, and the county commissioners.
And everything in between. And I'm Piper. I'm also a reporter here at the Lincoln County News. I typically cover Dresden, Whitefield, Wiscasset, and Nobleboro. And I've been a little bit of everywhere lately.
Yes, lately. So we have a new face to introduce to you today.
Yay!
And with her help, we're going to talk a little bit about the environment here in Lincoln County because just this week, Damariscotta took a front seat in a statewide discussion of what climate resilience means for Maine. But before then, we're going to talk about some of the top stories from our May 15th, 2025 edition.
All right, let's get into it.
This week was a doozy.
Yeah, it was. Unfortunately, we have a missing man in Damariscotta. Tyler Lowe, age 34, has been missing from his Heater Road residence since about 7:30 a.m. on May 5th. For those of you that don't know, Heater Road is off of the Biskie Road. People who know him say he's an experienced outdoorsman who knows the woods in the area very well. The search for him began on Tuesday, May 6th, and the Damariscotta Police Department, the Maine Warden Service, K-9 units, family, friends, and community members have all been involved in the search. He was last seen wearing brown Carhartt pants, a light blue t-shirt, a handkerchief around his neck, and boots. We're recording this midday on Friday, May 16th, so it's been 11 days, and he is still missing at this time. And we will update the show notes to reflect any more information that we learn about the case, or hopefully to say that he's been found.
Mm-hmm. Up north in the county this week, I went to a Somerville Select Board meeting where there was a long discussion about what I will call financial uncertainty, because there's a lot of missing information and a backlog of fiscal audits. And an audit is when, if you don't know, which I didn't before I started this job, a third-party accountant kind of goes through a town's finances and makes sure that the bookkeeping has been done right and that all the according laws and procedures have been followed. And according to Maine statute, a government body, which includes municipalities or a school board or something, has to have an audit done once a year. So I spoke with our state auditor, Matthew Dunlap, who said that, yes, there's a bit of a legal repercussion, but it might just be a fine of like about $100. So that's really not the concern here. The concern is the implications of missing audits, which he said, quote, could be profound because an audit, catches mistakes and catches things that aren't quite where they should be.
Yeah, and it helps government bodies kind of prepare for the next budget cycle.
Yes, exactly. It tells you how much is in the accounts, where money's coming from, where it's being drawn from. He said the audit is not so much a map as it is a compass. It's hard to say where you're going if you don't know where you're going and you don't know how to get there. An audit is designed to help a community do better. So there was lots of discussion about how this ended up happening. At the select board meeting on May 7th, people were speculating about why the audits hadn't been completed, with some people suggesting it had been intentional to cover fiscal wrongdoing, which is something that former Treasurer Sandra Devaney and former Select Board Chair Chris Johnson both denied. Devaney, who was treasurer since 2021 until last week, said she's been overwhelmed with a high workload coupled with personal and medical problems. And she said she knew that the audit work was falling behind, but said she'd been continually trying to make it happen. And as I mentioned, the Select Board has changed over since this issue began. And Johnson said he had been trying to push for the audit and believed that there was progress, but said he knew it was the board's responsibility and regretted not pushing more for it to be done. So when I spoke to our state auditor, Mr. Dunlap, he said it's not terribly uncommon to actually have a backlog of this extent. And I had heard that Somerville was behind on audits, but without naming names, I know several other towns that are too.
Yeah.
So it hadn't really stuck out in my mind until this discussion when they pointed out or revealed how far back it went. And he says his office sees a handful of towns every year dealing with a backlog, sometimes up to 3 or more years. And the only thing and everybody agrees about this. The only thing they can do now is do the audit.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that's going to give them the information they need and that people are arguing about. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that not as many people are going into becoming certified public accountants, and the prices are going up, etc. So getting an auditor for your town is really hard.
Yeah.
And the auditor that Somerville used to contract with, they don't have a relationship with anymore.
Oh,
so
okay.
I do not know what they're going to do. It sounds like they could either try and do an audit for each of the years that they're missing, which is 2022, 2023, and 2024 at this point, fiscal years. Or they could do what's called a forensic audit, which in a typical audit, you sample a random sampling of files and documents and such to give you an idea of what's going on. And in a forensic audit, they look at every single piece of paper in depth and scrutinize everything.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought that was what they did for a regular audit, just looked into everything.
Well, they do look at everything. They check every account, but they don't look at every single check receipt because that would be a lot. And it costs obviously a lot more to get a forensic audit done because it's a lot more work. It can be like $150 an hour. So Somerville Select Board Chair Willard Pierpont was saying that could end up being like $60,000 for the town, which I will just note that they have not been budgeting that much for an audit, so they don't have that in the accounts. But our state auditor was saying that he's very glad the select board is as spirited as they are. And I was like, yeah, they are. They really want to get this done. It's very clear from what they've said. So he was saying, this is a paraphrase, but he said, if I was living there, I would be glad to have a select board working this hard to get it done. So yeah, I'm sure they'll do something. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, hopefully they're able to get those audits done soon. I know there's a backlog for a lot of different government bodies around the state.
Yeah, they have the state auditor in their corner now, so hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
And down in Bristol, let's talk about Round Pond Coffee. Our former reporter, Jonathan Riley, reporter emeritus, went down there to speak with Jim and Sarah Mattel, who are celebrating 10 years at Round Pond Coffee.
Ooh, I thought we got rid of Jonathan Riley. He's still here?
Well, he keeps weaseling his way back.
I know. Gosh, we just can't say no to him. But yeah, anyway, for those that don't know, Round Pond Coffee is located on Route 32 in the Round Pond neighborhood of Bristol. And it was started in 2015, hence the 10-year anniversary.
Yes.
It sounds like they started it wanting to share their love of coffee, and we're also hoping to teach their two sons about entrepreneurship. And clearly that's going well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. They had two young sons, and they were like, we want to show them that it's possible to successfully start and run a business.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They've absolutely done. And then since then, the sons have become really involved in the process. For example, one of their most popular sandwiches, the Gobbler Panini, which is a great name. It's like a Thanksgiving sandwich, kind of. And it was Teddy Mattel's idea, one of their sons. And then when they turned the space into a wine bar at night, which, by the way, Common House Wine Bar, excellent spot. Seward Mattel built the bar, which is like this U-shaped bar that's designed to have
that's amazing.
Knights of the Round Table situation.
Oh my gosh.
So awesome. And it's a family affair.
Yeah. And
awesome.
the Mattels said watching the business become a fixture in the neighborhood has been rewarding and has led them to meeting a lot of new people and making new friends. So I'm super glad for them and hope for another 10 years.
Yes, me too. And now I feel like going to Common House.
I've never been. I'll have to go.
We'll have together. To go. Yeah, perfect. Will you tell me about Public Works in Newcastle and Damariscotta, please?
So this might be a little long because there's a little explaining to do.
Go for it.
But first and foremost, the towns of Newcastle and Damariscotta are considering reestablishing a joint Public Works department. So the Newcastle Select Board recently accepted a $5,000 ASK grant, or Assistance with Specific Know-How grant, from the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission. And the Damariscotta Select Board has to accept the grant as well because it was awarded to both towns. Kevin Sutherland, Newcastle's town manager, said the funds are going to be used to engage with a public works consultant. And essentially, both towns are just trying to kind of pave the path forward for their individual public works departments. And one of the ideas is forming a joint public works department. This is not a new concept for these towns. They had a joint public works department from 2011 to 2015. And at the time, the Damariscotta town manager, Matt Lutkiss, said it was discontinued due to personnel issues. So how public works currently happens in both of these towns, Damariscotta's public works department has 2 full-time employees who do routine road maintenance and seasonal improvements and things like that. And Newcastle has multiple contracts with Hager Enterprises for public works functions like snow removal and summer maintenance and improvements. And Kevin Sutherland said Newcastle's spending on road work jumped about 25% this year to a total of about $1.9 million.
Yeah.
So both towns are trying to kind of come up with cost-effective ideas that will get them more, regular and efficient public works functions.
Yeah, twin villains.
And one of the ideas is reestablishing that joint department. Now, this is not to say that it's most definitely happening. This is the first step in a long line of steps, and town officials have said that they will be, getting input from the community as they go.
Yes, of course. And that's kind of what the ask grants are typically for. A lot of communities around Lincoln County apply for them from LCRPC. And it helps them, usually in the beginning stages of a process, figure out where they're at. Because a lot of the times you do need professional input to be like, is this possible? You can't just be like, I think we might work together. Yeah,
because like I said, that joint public works department was discontinued about 10 years ago. So the towns have kind of developed their own processes for how they're dealing with it. So if they were to come back together, it would be kind of a big feat. But
yes, of course. By the way, did you pull that personnel issues quote from previous reporting?
I did. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Yeah, I had looked into it. I was like, oh, I wonder why that happened. But the reporting said personnel issues. So I don't know. We'll see what comes of it.
Yes. And then we have the conclusion to, I won't jinx it. I'm knocking on wood.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
A step in a case of continued communications cable theft, which has been happening and affecting people across Lincoln County for months. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office caught 3 people in the act at about 5 a.m. on Friday, May 9th, trying to steal communications cable in Whitefield. And they were each charged with aggravated criminal mischief, which is a Class C felony. This was Reggie French, 49, Steve French, 54, and Jennifer DeCosta, 44, all of China. And
China, Maine.
China, yes, sorry.
We'll note.
I actually, in the notes I specified, and then I forgot. So the alleged theft had a financial impact estimated at about $10,000. And according to Lieutenant Murphy of Lincoln County Sheriff's Department, Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. The department believes the alleged theft is related to similar acts throughout the Mid-Coast, and Consolidated Communications, which has a lot of the poles and lines throughout the county, is alleging loss and damages that amount to more than $230,000 through thefts that they believe may be connected. And I haven't heard back yet on whether it is connected, but back earlier this winter there was some impact to cables in Somerville when
I forgot about that.
Yes, there was an alleged theft.
I didn't even think about that one.
Cable. Yeah. So, and at the time I was speaking with a communications person from Consolidated who said, we think there's a ring and there's people who are doing this in kind of an organized way, but nobody had proof at the time. There was kind of it was early stages of the investigation, but apparently, I don't know if that's related, but apparently whatever investigation they were doing, they got to the point where they were able to catch them red-handed.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens.
Allegedly red-handed.
But if I recall correctly from the article, Lieutenant Murphy had said it was, an attempt to get the copper from the wires.
Well, yes, people, cable theft is common because people can sell copper at scrap metal places. But a lot of the times you might find that cables on poles there's a lot of things that aren't as valuable, like the fiberglass that is used for internet is just fiberglass. Yeah. And it's it's expensive. It's expensive to repair, but you're not really going to be able to sell that for much money, and it's hard to distinguish between the two. but I won't give any more background on cable theft. So
we will if anything else comes of it.
So 2 of those people who are accused posted bail. One didn't at the time of the article, so we'll update.
Yeah.
And then in Alna, let's turn to Alna for a fun story about mail.
People have not been getting mail.
Yeah.
Or have been getting it sporadically, depending, for about the past week or so. On Tuesday, May 13th, the Alna Select Board sent an email out to residents notifying them that mail delivery in town was disrupted. Parcels were still being delivered by substitutes, but letter mail, like bills, were not being delivered. Yeah. And I actually learned of this in the first place on the Alna News Facebook page.
Piper's good with Facebook.
I am on all my town's Facebook pages, just so you all know. I'm there lurking. I just want to see what's up.
Professional lurker.
Professional lurker, yeah. So I had seen a few posts inquiring about, mail service, and some people were saying that they hadn't received mail since May 2nd. And again, we're recording this the afternoon of May 16th. Yeah. So it's been 2 weeks. Yeah. The Alna Select Board said that the issue is seeming to come from USPS staffing shortages and an increase in parcel volume because Amazon has designated USPS as the sole carrier for its packages in Alna, which I didn't know. Yeah. So the town is attempting to, get in contact with USPS State Senator Cameron Rennie, Senator Susan Collins, and Senator Angus King to push for an expedited hiring process at USPS and emergency logistical support, like assigning temporary postal vehicles. So hopefully they'll be able to get mail service back to the town, but it sounds like it might be a few weeks.
Do you know if people are picking their mail up in the meantime?
Some people are picking their mail up at the Newcastle post office. I am unfortunately not sure if that is a practice that they are suggesting that residents do. Okay, but sorry. They are able to do it.
No comment on whether you should.
I apologize. I don't
blame
know.
us. All right. Well, I hope that gets remedied. I love getting mail personally.
I know. I can imagine. And I'm sure a lot of people have been getting bills and things like that late.
Of course. Yeah. Lots of really important stuff coming through the mail.
Yeah. The RSU 40 budget, Molly.
I know. I was just reflecting. I was like, is it editorializing if I call it a low turnout? But I'm going to do it.
No, I don't think so.
It's the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a low turnout, it's a low turnout.
It was. We had about 80 voters. And
that's for 5 towns, right?
For 5 towns, yeah. RSU 40 contains Waldoboro, Friendship, Warren, Washington, and Union. And they had 80 people come to the in-person open budget meeting, which was on Wednesday night. There was some disagreement among folks, and the budget meeting did take about an hour and a half. But ultimately, they approved the budget as proposed at $40,815,369, an increase of about $2.1 million or 5.47% over last year's budget. And another thing that did cause some discussion, just because people were wrapping their heads around it, I think, is that the board established a couple of reserve funds to transfer fund balance into. Because of the ongoing uncertainty about federal funding for education through various channels and streams that all combine to fund the district. So because the way that fund balance works legally is the board, if they haven't designated it through the budget process, they can't just spend it. Yeah. They have to go to a special town meeting unless it's been put into a reserve fund. So RSU 40 said, because we don't know if federal funds are coming, and because we have people fulfilling like legally mandated functions in roles that exist who are funded through federal funding, if the federal funding goes away and they haven't established reserve funds, they would have to go to special meeting to pay those people and have those necessary functions going on. So they just made a couple of reserve funds, and people ultimately approved that by a clear majority. So busy budget season.
And it's not over yet.
It's not over. I think the longest budget meeting I've been to so far this season was in Wiscasset, which was the education budget meeting. Took 3 hours. Yeah. And they also approved it as proposed. So what's yours, Piper? You been to any long ones yet?
Have I been to a budget meeting?
Oh, okay. Gosh. Well, we're just getting started.
Oh, no, I've been to a few. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I don't think any of them have been too long, so.
Yeah.
Crossing our fingers that we won't have
yeah, it's true.
super
Sorry,
long
I keep
ones.
jinxing us today.
Yeah, Molly, gosh.
Well, I'm excited to talk about our character of the county this week.
We have a Jonathan Riley written character.
We do. He's back in his role. Dr. Chip Teal of Damariscotta is an internationally recognized thinker in the field of geriatrics and dementia, which is a field I'm really interested in. He's also a primary care physician based in Damariscotta. He's practiced for more than 30 years, and he founded the Elder Care Network in Lincoln County, which you might know as the company that runs the greens. Like we have Hodgson Green in Damariscotta, Jefferson Green, Edgecombe Green, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So a lot of people are housed in Dr. Teal's facilities across the county.
That's very cool, yeah.
And he has a really, really cool story. He grew up in Reading, Mass. He was the eldest of 6. He went to Phillips Exeter in New Hampshire and then graduated from Dartmouth with a K-12 teaching certificate and a BA in history. And then he worked as a teacher.
That's not doctoring.
I know. This is the part that is so exciting to me. I loved reading this piece. He worked as a teacher until he was 30 years old. And then... But sorry, let me rewind. Earlier in his teaching career, when he did his practicum and his observations, he had this mentor, Dr. Wilburn de Rousseau, who introduced him to the world of medicine. He was an OBGYN, and for some reason, he was also Dr. Teal's teaching advisor, mentor person in the program he was doing. And Dr. de Rousseau saw something in Dr. Teal, according to Jonathan's reporting, and really encouraged him to come along to the hospital and literally look at surgery happening.
What?
Which was really inspiring to Dr. Teal, and it really stuck with him. He at the time, he didn't think he would be a doctor. He hadn't considered it, but it stuck with him. And then when he was about 30, he had been working as a teacher and a builder and really involved in his community. And he started thinking to himself that he wanted to work in medicine. So at 30, he pursued the last of his pre-med prereqs. By the way, at the time, he had toddlers. He went to medical school at UVM, and then after residency, he moved to Damariscotta with his family and founded Elder Care Network in 1996.
Wow.
Yeah. So amazing, and a really beautiful example of somebody finding their calling later in life.
Yeah.
I mean, 30's not...
Later in life at 30. It just goes to show that you can really find your passion at any point.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope that I can meet him sometime, because I think that the work he's doing in geriatric medicine is really cool. I love going to the Greens. I love meeting people there. They all seem really thrilled to be there.
Yeah.
And his the work he's doing right now, he has a book about kind of taking a holistic look at aging. I haven't read it, but I've been really hoping to. And he also is currently working on a holistic treatment for Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
Believing that because Alzheimer's is such a nebulous condition, really the best thing we can do to approach it, from a clinical standpoint, is encourage people to live really healthy lives and be in connection with people, be in community, be exercising, be eating healthily. And I think that's really cool. I love thinking about dementia. Not let me rephrase. I think dementia is really important to think about.
Molly has done a lot of research on dementia, where this is coming from.
Yes. So I was really excited to see this, because I think one of the challenges and reasons that people don't love thinking about dementia is it's so scary. First of all, 1 in 3 people will get it. And second of all, it's just so hard to understand. We really don't understand where it comes from at all. In some cases, some types, every type, there's a lot of different types. But so seeing somebody take this approach to it and be so world renowned and changing a lot of people's lives and being a Damariscotta person is so exciting. So I was thrilled to see this. Thanks, Dr. Teal. Well, we have some reminders for you before we get to introduce our lovely intern.
We've got some budget votes coming up, and coincidentally, they're all on the same night.
Yeah.
Luckily, they're for all different towns, though.
Pick your favorite. Well,
pick your poison. So RSU2's open budget meeting is at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 21st at Halldale Middle High School at 111 Maple Street in Farmingdale. For those that don't know, those are our Dresden voters. Member towns are Dresden, Farmingdale, Hallowell, and Monmouth. The budget is $31,532,162.58.
58 cents.
An increase of about $1.5 million or 5.18% from last year. And Dresden's proposed contribution is $2,385,003.31, an increase of about $15,000 or 0.67% from last year.
Nice. In Jefferson, we also have an education budget meeting. It'll also be an open meeting. The budget covers K-12 education in Jefferson. Jefferson is a part of AOS 93, which had a restructuring this year. So things are looking a little bit different in terms of like the cost sharing agreement. And then they also are really struggling to hire people to fill special education teaching roles. So they're sending a lot of kids out with contracts, which also have a significant cost. So the total budget that is proposed is $9,763,805.37, an increase of $1.18 million or 13.85% over last year. Steep increase. And I spoke with the school board chair, Danielle Bernier, and she said it was a perfect storm because of everything. Because of everything. So
because of the everything.
Yeah. So the open vote is going to be at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 21st at Jefferson Village School, probably in the gym, but go there and look around.
Go there and look for the people.
Yeah. And then we got one more.
And then we've got RSU 12's open budget meeting, and we've got a few Lincoln County towns part of that one. Alna, Somerville, Westport Island, Whitefield, and Windsor, along with Chelsea and Palermo. Their total proposed budget is $28,640,726.82, which is up about $1.4 million or 5.16%. And their vote is at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 21st at Chelsea Togus Elementary School. So go vote, please.
Go vote. Yeah. Go and raise your hand.
And read our preview articles so you know what you're voting on.
Yeah, we do have more in-depth looks at all of these in the paper this week. So take a look. All right, so now we're going to bring in somebody new.
Yay!
We have a new face here today with us. Hello, Nora.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. This is Nora Conlin, our summer intern.
Yes.
One of our summer interns.
Yeah, sorry, our only one right now. Nora, where do you go to school?
I go to school at Wheaton, Massachusetts. Yeah, I just finished my sophomore year, so I'm going into my junior year.
Nice.
Yes.
And what are you studying?
I'm studying international relations with a minor in journalism. So.
Wow.
What are you doing here? Why do you want to work with us? I mean, we're so happy to have you, but why do you want to work with us?
I think local news is really important with everything going on, and just in general, I think it's a really important outlet to have for people to stay informed and like keep reading and just stay updated on things. And I really enjoy journalism and reporting. So I just wanted to get an experience and meet new people, and yeah, so that's why I'm here.
I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
I feel like everybody who gets into local news has at least like experienced or has a connection to a local paper. Mm-hmm. Did you read, well, Nora's from Booth Bay. So did you read the Lincoln County News or the Booth Bay Register when you were growing up?
I did. I read the Booth Bay Register a lot. Both my parents have always like had newspapers in the house, so
yeah,
they are avid readers. So I tried to stay somewhat up to par with them. But yeah,
that's awesome. I always wonder about like how you can encourage your kids to care about the newspaper. Jonathan, a former reporter, did like and Piper, you've done this too, an educational thing with the kids. And he was saying like they couldn't even hold up the paper because it's so big.
Yeah, Jonathan and I have been to a couple of Lincoln Academy classes just to talk about reporting and what that entails, reporting on a community. So yeah, our paper is so large.
Yes, it is.
But it's one of our It's one of our coolest characteristics.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's Nora's second day, right? Or third day?
Third day.
Yes.
Yeah.
How has it been so far? How does it compare to your expectations to be here at the Lincoln County News?
It's been great. Everyone's been really nice and very accommodating. I would say last semester I took a journalism class, and my professor was a journalist at WPRI, which is like a CBS affiliated branch in Rhode Island. And since he had that experience, he would constantly tell us about internships he's had at newspapers and such, and he described them as very fast paced, which didn't scare me off of it, but it definitely made me a little hesitant to try a journalism internship, just because it can be very stressful. So I haven't quite experienced that yet here. It probably will pick up and become more, fast paced. But right now it's been really nice, and it's a good experience just to try and start out. And I've been to a couple meetings and done some reporting so far, so that's been really fun. And yeah, I'm excited to learn more and meet everybody.
Yay! Yeah, summer's a good time, and you joined us on a Wednesday afternoon, so the stress will come. Don't worry. I also wanted to ask you, I know that you enjoy environmental writing, and how did you get into that, and what drew you to that area?
I would say I've always been interested in the environment, but my freshman year I took some classes, I took one environmental literature class, and that really changed my perspective on it. Because it is really important, and writing impacts the way that people understand the world around them, and especially in the environment. And so I think it's important to have those trustworthy sources to go to and to read when an issue arises, or just to educate oneself on any topic. And yeah, it's just something I really enjoy writing about, and I think it definitely needs all the publicity it can possibly get, because that's something that's really endangered right now. So I think it's important.
Definitely. I wonder how you feel about environmental writing and community journalism. Where do those two come together?
I think everything starts on a local basis. And I think that those municipal meetings and community meetings do impact at least things on a smaller level here, and I think it is important for those topics to also for those topics to get written about, so people can know what's happening at a local level before understanding the big picture. It might not make the most significant contribution in terms of climate change or anything like that, but I think it's important to at least make progress in a town or a small city or anything, to just head towards the right track.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to have that outlet to go to and see what policies their towns are making, and what politics are going on.
Yeah, definitely. We had a pretty clear example of the impact of severe weather on our communities. I mean, we have it pretty frequently. Whenever there's a storm, a big significant storm, we see in the ensuing select board and planning board meetings all the efforts people are making to recover. And this past week, Governor Mills was in Damariscotta, which was a big thing. We knew she was coming, but we didn't know what she was going to talk about. And so the rumors were swirling.
Yeah, they were.
And it turned out she was coming to Damariscotta to present the next thing I want to talk about, which is a report from the Maine Infrastructure Rebuilding and Resilience Commission, which was this group of people that was formed last year around this time in response to the extreme storms that we had in January 2024 and December 2023. But Nora, since you're from Booth Bay, and Piper, since you're from Rockland, I wonder if you guys could tell me, as somebody from away, how it's been to watch, or if you agree that storms are more severe, and what are the impacts of that you've observed growing up?
I think they're definitely more severe just from what I've seen. Like I know in Portland, the highest record for the new record for the highest tide in the whole state was set during that storm in January 2024. I think it was 14.5 feet. And it washed away a lot of things, but it washed away some like historic fishing shacks on the point of South Portland.
Yeah, those were crazy pictures.
Yeah, it was insane. My friend lives in that area, like 2 seconds from that, and she, has been going to those like shacks her whole life, and one day they were just like swept away and gone. And I did, like a few days after the storm, I went to Ocean Point in Boothbay Harbor, and I saw like the road was completely like inundated, and like there was like seaweed up in the grass, and it was like approaching the houses up there. So it's definitely become more severe, and it's really impacting communities, like not even just tourists or like people who have summer homes, like people who have like long-term permanent homes here and like historical sites. It's really impacting those. And so yeah, I think it's definitely an approaching danger to have that keep happening.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's this, I'm holding the report, which is like this 80-page document full of charts and photos of the storms and like the aftermath. And they also have this, the report itself is a bunch of steps. I think there's like 50 steps, and they range from implementation like now, as in it says 0 years, to implementation over like the next 10 or so, to strengthen Maine's infrastructure, like roads and bridges, which we really clearly saw kind of in the example you just brought up, are at risk from sea level rise and extreme weather, but also things like the electrical grid and wastewater treatment plants to keep sewage from overflowing when we have extreme storms. But it also has this list of disaster declarations and emergency declarations that have happened within, I guess, since March 2022, because we've had 8. And just looking at the distribution of where they fall, most of them are along the coast. And then we also see severe windstorms and flooding more inland. But it's it ultimately covers the whole state, all of these declarations. So Governor Mills was here, and she chose Damariscotta because, word on the street is that she was here because they're trying to they are in the process of raising the causeway to Maine Health Lincoln Hospital, which is located at this little piece of land connected by a causeway to the mainland. And in the past, before they raised the causeway, it would flood when there was like a high tide and severe storm, and so ambulances couldn't get to the hospital. And then there's also, of course, the huge project going on in the back parking lot, which has been a long time coming, to make a stormwater retention tank that can hold, according to Andy Dorr, town manager, 6-inch rainstorm over 6 hours, which is a lot of rain.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so I went on a tour of the parking lot after the press conference and saw Andy showing off the town's progress. But it was fun. There was lots of news crews looking at the parking lot and like the flood wall, and it was quite the scene. Well, thanks, Nora, for coming on the podcast and letting us interrogate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I was so glad you could join us.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. Production support is provided by Tyler Davis of Tyality Productions. Theme music by Stu Mahan and Sherwood Olin.
Have a question or a suggestion? Email us at info@lcnme.com. And if you haven't already, please be sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen.
This has been a Lincoln County Publishing Company production.